Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I wanted to do a video on Marc Silvestri, who's recently doing Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo. Here's the ash can that came out recently. But when I was doing it, I really want to do something on his kind of career, but then thinking, since the image guys have had long breaks, it'd be easy to kind of do. But then looking at his career and other things I wanted to say about his career, um, we have Conan. Um, what is it? We have Conan. We have Web of Spider-Man. We have the X-Men, of course. Wolverine. Obviously Cyberforce. We have the Darkness. We have Star Trek, X-Men. He went to the Hulk, I believe, for a little while. He did an X-Men again. And of course, we have this series here. And I guess talk about his influences. I don't know if I have one of his other ones, which is John Buscema. That's all the way at the other end. But the closest that you can see, because the Silvestri Babe isn't necessarily like a Buscema Babe, but you can see the line work here. He's really trying to bring out the Wrightson in his art. Now you could possibly see the Wrightson in his art in his Wolverine, but his Wolverine is kind of more taken to his other influence, which he was a big fan of, which is Mike Mignola. The kind of murkiness that him and Dan Green kind of put together, right? So, how do I know any of this? Well, before I get into that, this thing is going to be kind of free flowing more so than anything. I've tried to kind of not go as put everything into this at once, but we'll see how it goes because there's a couple other things I want to say here. All right, so let's go through this, and then we'll get through some other books of his. I don't know if we're going to do these X-Men or Wolverine yet, but here we start, right? And I mean, he's just a master storyteller, right? Harley Quinn. Like, look at the simple. If you're a Batman guy, you already know who these people are. Harvey Bullock, letting you know that the Joker's there. Then, of course, Batman's shadow precedes him. Shows up. And this is a black label sort of thing. So since he's writing this himself, kind of playing with the form, being able to kind of do a story without any words to start out with, right? I'm not sure. Maybe it does. Maybe just the ash can doesn't have it, but it's cool that you can tell the story without any words. So I almost wouldn't put anything on there, but it's his his backgrounds are incredible. I know everyone likes to talk about how Jim Lee influenced him, and we kind of lost what he was, the storyteller he was. But a lot of people go as far as their influences and takes them to different places, and they learn pieces. So it's all our job is to follow them and see where they go with it, right? And he has a funky thing for the utility belt here. I think he kind of worked out what Neil Adams was trying to do with it. I still like the trunks better, but his Batman can glide or fly, one of the two. All right. Keeping with the Frank Miller thing that Alfred is his medic, so he can had those scenes of being in bandage. So he got shipped something from Jim Gordon. So now he has to go after the Joker. He's supposed to do a spit handshake, but he spits in his face, and they're going to work together on this crazy story. Right? Now this looks a little different than what we have here. It's darker here, so I'm gonna have to come back and do this for you. Some of the prospects of stuff you could buy, right? So we did it. We got through the ash can. It's out. It's out already. You should check it out. But since we're here, only 5 minutes in, let me talk about my humble. When I first met Marc Silvestri. Now I didn't have the Living Pharaoh graphic novel, which I should try to get. I've seen it, and it's a gorgeous book, so I definitely should get that. But I met Silvestri here in X-Men versus the Avengers, written by Roger Stern. Right? Now, at first, because also the X-Men are kind of wacky at this period. It wasn't a lineup I was kind of keen on. So, but right here, outside of, I liked how he kind of drew the She-Hulk here, even though it's like, now it looks a little rougher than when I was a kid. But right here, I was sold. And I was like, all right, why isn't this guy doing the Avengers? Like, this guy needs to do the Avengers, like, right away. Like, right away. Like, it's like imperative that this guy does the Avengers, right? And at this point, he's kind of one of the new guys in Marvel, kind of trying to make his mark. And you can see as a creator, he's going to do some visual stuff here to really show what he can do, right? Now even though he gave Monica Rambeau kind of straight here, his Monica Rambeau is pretty dynamic. Well, all of his Avengers, like this was, I think John Buscema was inked by Tom Palmer, but yeah, even his Thor is like massive, kind of close to what Walter Simonson, maybe bigger than what Walter Simonson was doing. And this is the Thor with Hela's Curse period, right? So in this story, Asteroid M is starting to fall, right? So it's literally just falling out of the sky, right? And just chunks of it magnetizing, hitting the Avengers Quinjet, all this stuff. They help that. Thor helps and saves them from crashing. Then at the same time, S.H.I.E.L.D. was having a hard time separating this chunk of rock from this. I'm not sure what it is. I kind of revealed it. And then when it says it's unusually magnetic, and when he cuts a chunk, it goes right to that. But then also we see some sort of mechanical stuff here, right? Technology. This is, I already spoiled it, but here are the, what are these guys called? The Soviet super soldiers. And we get to see how dynamic even these guys are, right? So if you don't got the trade, I would get it, because all of these characters really pop under his pencils, right? Then we have the X-Men, and then, like, I guess this is an ode to Chris Claremont, where we have the X-Men lounging, and I realized that Silvestri had the power, same like John Romita Jr., turn everyone into babes. And this was kind of where it kind of felt like the X-Men had changed a little too much, because, you know, everyone was kind of looking a little more normal instead of being kind of odd. Like, these are all babes that could be on the beach that you would be too scared to talk to, and same with the guys. Even Magneto here. But then he has these storytelling bits here, killing this fly. I didn't like the idea of Havoc kind of not having his costume and using his powers regularly. Then his Storm, like, wasn't a fan of Punk Storm, but his Punk Storm works. His Magneto works. So it's kind of this. I was at a crossroads, because I could see what he could do from this issue, and the Avengers at this point are popping a little more than the X-Men. But and this is where Magneto hears about stuff coming from his asteroid M, right? This magnetic asteroid. And he's like, oh, I gotta go find out something from my criminal past. And you can see a lot of stuff has been rewritten here, you know, changed, because a lot of editorial, they're struggling with stuff. So they kind of, you can see some stuff might have been like whited out. So Magneto just skates off, right? X-Men was like, what? And then they find out that he's going after Asteroid M. Right? Magneto, Wolverine checked into it, so they don't know what he's going to do, right? So we got the Avengers kind of talking about this stuff. Like, see, she kind of has straight hair instead of kinky hair. But, you know. And then when he talking about Magneto, what he did in X-Men #1, which everyone knows, and X-Men 4. And then Thor recounts his time meeting him. And then Captain America struggling with how he allowed a couple mutants to die and some of his brotherhood, but they survived. And then the Beast telling him about what happened in X-Men 112 113, right? So, and then, of course, hey, he did send. So now, Roger Stern is in the camp of where Byrne is. So he's like saying, hey, look at all this stuff that he's done. Like, that's a lot to repent for. But, you know, we don't want the Soviets getting it, because they had some stuff fall their way, right? So Magneto makes his way over here, and he gets met by Captain Marvel, right? He's trying to go through her. When Magneto's ready to fight, and he's in a headmaster costume, but Dr. Druid stops him, and then the X-Men show up. I should have had issue 2. I think I'm coming back to this. This issue 2 is that his She-Hulk is gorgeous. She's busting out of here. She's gorgeous. Everyone. Dark Star, and in the fight, like this shot here, Soviet super soldier. So it really starts off cool. So that's how I met him, right? Where we at? 14. Hope you guys are having fun. Next, because I was waiting for X Factor to get hot, but they had some really lame villains, I'm just gonna have the cover of X Factor. Number 9, because he doesn't actually draw it, but it shows you how dynamic the originals could have been. And they kind of pop. I just showed you some X-Men he did. And these originals kind of pop a little more and easily to see. Now, they're in costume, but at the same time, we've had some shots of them. And this as a cover is really nice, right? But we're going to use this one, right? This one has his drawing the inside. So, and I always wish he kind of stayed with that. But at this point, he was just kind of working his way around the X office. So I think he did a total of 3 X Factor issues, and they're all gorgeous. I think it's issue 13 also, and then he did like 53 or 56, something like that. So here, Jean and Scott are working together. I think at this point, Jean knows that Cyclops is married, right? So they're working together. He shows her a picture of her, and then next thing you know, it's kind of like, he says, she looks a lot like me. He says, she should have been you, right? And then he says, how can you walk out your own son? And they, of course, taking the blame of this kind of editorial thing out on Cyclops. But they set up later that he didn't actually, the plan wasn't to walk out on his son and his wife. It was to go back, but he lost total contact with him, right? And here's Vera from back in the day. I think that's Vera, right? Yep, it's Vera. So Vera had this interview talking about mutants. She was way back from the old X-Men days. And she's this is nice to have a nice human moment, have Vera in here. And then being able to chill. And then we have their mutant charges, Artie and Rusty. This is what the X-Men should have been doing. They should have been really helping a lot of young, but they had the New Mutants, but they didn't really deal with the New Mutants that much, right? So Rusty has power to heat stuff up, and Hardy has the stuff to make mirages pop up, right? We got Trish Trilby, right? I think that's who that is, right? So there's still people talking about X Factor in the news. So at this point, kind of the X office has X Factor. At one point, they weren't connected, but now they have Louise Simonson here. She's that's creeping in that this is a bad idea, and at the same time, that Cyclops really screwed up when he was kind of stuck between, content where they wouldn't allow Madeline to come to the title, right? So, Angel, this is kind of the last vestige of the Bob Layton story, where Angel was kind of deciding that he was going to go after Jean. He already has a girlfriend, and Scott has a wife. So yeah, we had this nice connection. We have Mystique. And this is where we finally get a story where the X Factor gets to deal with someone of some worth. Like they finally have some, outside of introducing Apocalypse, we have the Freedom Force that's going to check out these X Factor characters. They're going to see if they can get to Rusty, right? So you can already see the storytelling here that he can do. He's a great storyteller, right? It's really easy to follow. And this was kind of put him ahead of his image peers. But, they all have their strengths, right? So they're going to go after Rusty, right? Because they saw Rusty walking around as one of the mutant hunters. So they kind of, so Louise is writing against the whole mutant hunters thing, where there's bits that no one would get, but of course, and Jean is mad at Angel too because he didn't tell her Scott was married. And she kind of helps smooth it over, right? And of course they're friends, so it would be kind of a close moment. But then they're trying to get to the Marvel angst. So he's yelling at Rusty, and they go out and realize that X Factor's in trouble, right? They're being set up. And Hodge is already setting up that Hodge has got some issues. So they can't mess with him either. So they're going to run out and try to hide, right? Immediately, they're trying to, since Rusty came out, they were trying to draw X Factor out to get Rusty, but in actuality, he came out himself, and they kind of they're using their powers, Gene's powers, to kind of keep them back, right? And they say a nexus of probabilities around Gene. And Rusty finally uses his powers and for some good, but that leads Pyro to use his powers. And then they catch, but then Skids comes out there. Skids able to help him out, but you can't hold on to Skids because she has a light force field around her, right? And this is, so we had the thing of him talking initially about seeing Gene and saying he could never be close to someone because of his fire. And these two characters kind of got sidelined with the whole X-Force, X-Factor. They were part of the Exterminators, but, and then Trish Trilby, she gets run over. Like, see this, the little bit of storytelling that he can do here to highlight these human characters. So in my mind, I was hoping he'd stay, right? And then the humans are tossing stuff at the mutants. And then he thinks he needs a helper. So he comes back to this fire there. And you have this, I should give you the second part of this, but I'm trying to get through this, so I'm sorry. But the next issue is done by the great, I think it's Terry Shoemaker, right? But I like those outfits too. So and the original X-Men had two great sets of great outfits, and and I think Rose Portacio made them even better when he did them. But you could see how so yeah, I think this cover, this was like, oh man, I can't wait. I bought this one. This is the actual one I had. But then one of my other favorites, Terry Shoemaker. So the rest of the story ends here, right? So we got that. So he's with the X Office. We're gonna round this one out, right? He's with the X Office, and Bob Harris is like, we're gonna sign him up if we don't have an artist for the New Mutants, right? And to show you proof of that, here it is, right? So the Mutant Massacre happens, and this is going to the fall of the mutants, and here we have the art team that was going to be on the New Mutants: Marc Silvestri and Terry Austin, right? And I'm not sure if Silvestri was too keen on the New Mutants, but he was keen on working with Ileana. And when he said he was on the X-Men, what he wanted to do is have a crossover with Excalibur, because he really wanted to work with Nightcrawler, right? But we have him doing a nice storytelling bit. And it would have been cool to see these two. I think they only did another thing, which was I guess it was an Inferno ad. It was an ad for Inferno. So he gets the job for the New Mutants, and then what happens? Well, let's go. Instead of going to that, we're gonna leave on a cliffhanger. Let's get to this last bit, right? And this should give you guys a good episode, right? This was the interview with Marc Silvestri, right? So we got X-Men to do, but we're not gonna do X-Men or Wolverine. We're just gonna touch on it. So hopefully spend the last 5 minutes on this, right? So he can even do like cartoony stuff, or they say, what do they call it, Bigfoot type art, right? So when you hear me joke a little bit about Marc Silvestri and his style of drawing, Marc Silvestri is a Marc Silvestri type of guy. He's like, he's over 6 foot. I think he might be taller than me. And at this point, I'm not sure if they're still connected with Cynthia Sullivan, but you can see his girlfriend is a Silvestri type babe. And we have some sketches from him, some stuff he did. And he talks about his history and how basically at 21, he was always doodling. And his friend saw a DC challenge and said, hey, you should try that. So he had no interest in comics outside of what I said, which was let's see, Bernie Wrightson. Sorry guys, didn't mean that happened. Big fan of Bernie Wrightson and John Buscema, right? So his friend tells him, hey, you should try this. You're always doodling. And I don't even understand. Oh, he also took life drawing classes. So yeah, he also took life drawing classes because it had more girls than guys in there. Of course, since he's he's Marc Silvestri. What else are you gonna do? You're gonna be smart like that, right? So with the DC, Joe Orlando, like with his stuff, he did. I think it's I just quickly read through this. He did House of Mystery, and while he was around there, he met Jim Shooter, showed Jim Shooter his stuff. He says, come to Marvel, I'll double your stuff. And he immediately went to, I think it was Conan. And I think they'll have the number of Conan right here at some point. But this is the Revenge of the Living Monolith. And there's some of the pencils that he had from there. All right? So you can see how dynamic that is. Sorry to have to see the World Trade Center like that, but it's a tough thing. And here's some more stuff in the sketchbooks. He talks about the inks that he liked. And obviously people are not too keen on him and Dan Green. He was a big fan of Dan Green. He was a fan of Leola, Hilary Barta. I can't remember who Tony D. Zuniga. I'm not sure what book they did together, but got this nice drawing of Wolverine. Right? And here he talks about him doing Web of Spider-Man, and then after doing Web of Spider-Man, he got offered to do the New Mutants, and then while he was there, he knew that John Romita wasn't doing it, so he turned to Ann Nocenti and said, what about the X-Men? Can I do the X-Men? And she was kind of with it. She was like, I really like what you're doing with the X-Men in this miniseries. Would you like to do them? So then they said, great. And the person that wasn't too happy was Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont was kind of like, hey, he was trying to get either Arthur Adams, Alan Davis, I think Steve Rude, he tried to ask to do it. Among 3, probably Barry Windsor Smith only did 1 issue during that period. And so then they say, it was a rough start for them, but at the same time, and because there's so much story in Chris's plots that he has to trim it to get what's out there, but he feels that they were a good team, right? And, He's a Wolverine. Is his favorite. Here he talks about wanting to do Nightcrawler and crossover with Excalibur. He says, so I wouldn't mind doing Batman, something like a prestige format Batman, just to do it. It's one of those things, everyone should draw Batman and Superman at least once in their life. All right, and you can see the babes here. I think that's Dazzler. And see, to get to the end here, we have a Silvestri babe. So I wanted to show you guys that, so you get to see. I don't know if you've heard that joke I keep saying. That's a Silvestri babe. And then we got some more X-Men art. And bang, there we go. So this is a classic, him and Dan Green. And this would lead, well, I don't know. Let's do 5 minutes. All right, let's move this Batman over. So I talked about this, and look at this. Starts in the mall. I think, who was it? Bob McLeod did a great mall scene, right? But see, once he sets up the mall, then he's not a slave to the backgrounds. Yeah, Tom DeFalco's manager, and right, he's editor-in-chief. So right here, here's Jubilee's first appearance. And oh yeah, the Jubilee. I think the Louise Simonson said that. No, that's what she. No, I think that he introduced the Jubilee. She told her later. I got the timeline wrong, so I don't need to tell that story now, right? But here's the first appearance of Jubilee. Well, here, Shooter would have had him set up the background early. At this point, he's like, hey, the background's someone there. You can do this, focus on the action stuff, right? This is a pretty decent mall scene, right? A nice setup, the opening shot, so it keeps you in your mind, right? And then her on the run. Oh my God. No, the only thing that can work in comics. So here's Betsy, Splash, in the same tub as Betsy, Storm and them, right? And her struggling with Carol Danvers. This is going to lead to her exiting the title for a little bit. So this is the Babes issue, but I think it's called Ladies Night. That was it, Ladies Night, not Babes. All right. So yeah, like this is like fashion model stuff. Like he almost could do like some heavy duty, clothing design. I think another issue to look at, which is a great one, which isn't really X-Men, the one he does with Dazzler, right? So yeah, this is good that I did this. And then have this Mutant Hunter thing. It's just a gorgeous book, right? Dance with Chippendales. And these phony mutant hunters. Look at the inking on this. Look at the detail that Dan Green adds onto this. Yeah, so it's just kind of fun issue, right? and dealing with you. This, well, I can tell you a story about that, but I gotta find that one. That's what I should do next. I'm gonna find that and do that. So, all right. So there, we're going through that. Show you how gorgeous that stuff is with the ladies, signed by Chris Claremont. If it was the artist, he probably signed it right there. But that's how we do. And this we have what would be his kind of claim to fame, right? Because even though he did the X-Men, was making a ton of money. It's not until Wolverine where people started to take notice. So we're just gonna look through this issue, right? Because this is right connected to like the mutant genesis stuff, right? So at this point, he's really going through his Mignola period, right? It's almost like Mignola feet here. It gets to this murky sort of his Colin Palmer stuff, which is kind of his, you can say almost like a Wrightson period too, right? Get into Wolverine's history, the Weapon X stuff, right? And they're going through trying to get through his memories. This is written by Larry Hama, who became Mr. Wolverine. And then we have Sabretooth running through his memories. Being Creed at this time. He got, of course, a cool name to go with his Sabretooth name. And we get just some, this one is kind of fun, right? I kind of like but I guess Larry Hama is tough as nails stories. So he got his girlfriend Silverfox, which we know that who's the name? Sabretooth killed, right? And spoiling it. Let's just show you. Yeah, this was pretty good, right? And as the story gets wackier and wackier, going to Wolverine's memories and the guy from Weapon X storyline, we get some bits from Weapon X, a little Mignola type of shot here, right? Like this stuff here, like you can really see he's getting into the Mignola stuff. Then this is what he did with the last, so to kind of get him to calm down. And this is the big moment where he changes costume. I'm not an animal, even though I'm not a Wolverine, and the show he's not a Wolverine. He puts on the yellow costume, right? But then the person who seems to have died all the time is still there, right? So we did it. We gave you a good start to Silvestri stuff to go through with the Batman stuff. So I'm sorry I like to do it, but give you guys more bang for your buck. I guess I could have just done this guy, but hey, there we go. I think that's a good start to Silvestri. Maybe we'll do some single issues and stuff that I like. All right, Spinner Rack out.